Okay. Let's go ahead and get started, gang, so we can get rolling. All right, work session for Monday, July 13th, 2020, and this will be for the July 20th, 2020 meeting. First up on the proposed regular agenda is a 10-year award, Gregor Hoffer, police officer for 30 years. Outstanding stuff. Anything to add on that, Chief? Nope. No? Okay. And we're going to do our friend Leo a favor and move him up to the top so we can get him back on the road safely tonight. So first up is public hearing consideration of plans and specifications for the 2020 flood mitigation phase 6.
Thank you. Leo Foley, Veenstra and Kim. Okay, first thing up is the schedule. That schedule shows us having the work session tonight, council meeting for the public hearing on July 20th. And you go down, we received bids August 25th. And we have a couple of dates in here for September 8th is the council meeting for the contract award. Then I had an April 30th, this is still being discussed with Jesse and Nick, to substantially complete the flood wall and the railroad closures. We think it's very possible they could have that done. We don't think it's a huge deal, but Nick and Jesse had concerns that because of how fast that is, 7 or 8 months, that could raise the bids. What I think I'd like to do is maybe go out for bid and then talk to the contractors. And if they think it's too tight, we extend that down a little bit. The intent of that was typically you get high water in March and April.
Yep.
You get floods in May and June. You know, the big high water doesn't go away and now you get big rainfall. So the intent was to try to have it done. And then we gave them quite a bit more time to June 30th for the rest of the work. And I wanted to kind of go through some of that work for you, just so everybody's on the same page here. The red shows on the left side is what we're calling the south, and on the right side is the north. The south connects into the existing wall, comes out like this. You'll see some jogging right here. I'll show you some pictures afterwards. That had to do with the solids building in the lift station and being able to get their trucks into that garage properly and all that type of thing. So that's why you see some of that jogging in there. Next one. This shows that force main we had talked about. So this is a 30-inch secondary force main. Currently you have one force main to get from this lift station up to the wastewater treatment plant. We think that's a liability. If something ever goes wrong with that force main, you're in big trouble. Since the Tiger project is up on Main and coming down this way with a bike trail, we thought this is a good place. We were going to come to a point, we didn't, we showed it back on this one, a point right here where everything this direction is flood protection, everything that direction is Tiger. So you can see here, we're coming down, whoops. Oh, I don't want to go backwards. There we go. Okay. So you're coming down here. These are basically, since you have the box right here, that's your storm box, which is a 10-foot deep concrete box. Our structurals were very concerned with, as the water pushes against this and the foundation, they needed so much pressure to be able to count to protect the foundation. If they did that, they would be impacting the walls of your lift station, and they didn't want to be responsible for cracks and all that. So they ended up putting a tieback system here with a dead men here, and these are steel tieback rods, so it brings it back. So we brought our foundation, our force main out and around and through, and there's already a connection at the wastewater treatment, at the Market Street lift station right here. It's a blind flange, 30-inch, so we connect there. We don't do anything inside yet, and we don't do anything past angular yet. That'll be another study to how do we hook those up and how do we use them. But this will have that pipe in the ground while we're doing construction.
That's new pipe.
That's new pipe. And as you can see, you've got to get through this mess and then you've got a wall with an extensive foundation that you've got to get through. So all that's designed and detailed, how to get through and how to connect. So this is not an easy project for anybody. There's a lot of utilities and problems all throughout that area, so we think we have it all covered. This is the north part, a little bit easier as far as utilities. They also have a second track. I've been talking to the Burlington Junction Railroad quite a bit about the intent was that they were going to provide that second track runaround. We don't think it can sit right where it is. We'd want it moved over. They weren't intending on moving it over. So we've been talking to them. We may go back to the drawing board in the next week and design a build while a train comes past, and then you'd pull it out. They say they only need about an hour a day. So if we could put in some false footings and make since we have to put everything on pilings anyway, we might be able to put like a concrete structure, put it there and kind of bridge it. So that we're still in that little process right there. That just kind of came up. Other than that, there's not a lot of issues on this end. The railroad track's at 21 feet. Nick told us that this parking lot he wanted at 18 or higher, so he doesn't have to put that in. So what we ended up doing is putting it a little higher, and the sill at all this flood protection that we put in will be the same height as this. So that should make it so you put it all up at one time. And you could probably stop and wait on the railroad track because that's going to be 2 feet higher, a couple feet
For
higher.
reference, we start initiation of PESCOs at 16.5.
Right. So you've got between 16.5 and probably 18.5 before a couple more feet. And that was done on the south end also.
And that's a gate, right? I mean, you're just going down and a couple guys go down and close it up and lock it up and it's good.
No, this right here,
Or the panels will be put in the same way that we do the panels now.
exactly. I really don't need, this is just showing you all the work that's being done as far as what's being removed in that area. There's, like I said, there's a lot of coordination, a lot of work that has to be done. Same thing, we're basically using this whole parking lot as staging and things so they can do the flood wall. And then we'll have to put this back to match what ends up happening with the Tiger Grant. So we have them both kind of matched up and all coordinated at this point. So the flood protection will take care of this, Tiger takes care of all the rest on this end. This is now an alternate in the Tiger Grant. If money's available, then we definitely do that side.
Can you talk about the elevation change between what you're removing and what the existing north boat ramp is?
On this boat ramp? I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about.
So what is the elevation of the area that you're removing?
This,
And then what is it gonna go back into versus what the existing elevation is for the boat ramp?
There'll be a grade change, is that what you're saying?
there will be a grade change, but it'll be very gentle. It will be
And I wanted you to say.
But what's
Okay.
the actual change between,
I want to say a couple of feet. A couple of feet, but it's all gonna be, that's why the whole parking lot's getting redone. So you won't see it as much, because we're gonna have a nice, gentle grade. It won't be anything fast. And that's how you're getting that, is to come up to here, and then we'll match up in here. Right now, it's all pretty level. This shows you the force main. This line is, again, the line, the bore pit's right here. So flood protection takes that bore pit, Tiger brings it all the way to the bore pit. This bore is a huge bore with a 30-inch pipe in a 48-inch steel pipe. And that means you can remove that at any time. It's basically Burlington Northern's, that's how you have to do a bore for them. So it will be to me, it's standard boring. That's nothing different than what we always do on something like this. The last thing we'd want to do is get a bore in there, have something go wrong, and have to tear it all up again.
what's the size of the existing pipe, the force main that's in there now?
30. They're both 30s. And it comes in onto this side of the lift station, comes right across here somehow. through here. I've got it on here. I can't see
We've
it.
talked in the past, and the sewer master plan has us replacing that lift station, I think in 12 years.
Yes.
Um,
I don't,
that being said, does it make sense to go bigger on the force main?
I don't-
So that we're not looking at saying we need to make these improvements or upgrades 20
Well-
years from now?
what we were saying is you're gonna have a 30-inch that replaces a 30-inch. You won't replace it, but it'll have you, so you could basically maybe use that other 30-inch.
Keep the other pipe in the ground.
And then we'll do piping. I mean, we could do pumping to change it. A 30-inch force main, you can get a lot of flow through that with bigger pumps. Then the question becomes on Don's end, what does he do with that flow if we can get it to him? So that's where we need kind of another project to look into that. Well, I shouldn't say it, but I don't know that you'll ever get rid of that pump station, but I certainly think you might be able to downsize it and make it not as significant and not as critical to the city. And that might be something. Maybe you could get rid of it, but you'd have to find some other way of, everything comes down to there. So you have to pump it eventually. These are just structural drawings. The only thing I wanted to point out, and it's hard to see, it's basically, these are the walls that will be constructed, and all of this is temporary, or not temporary, but removable, that goes in there. You can see these are where the rails go, and then the panels come up. These are like 18 and a half, 19 feet apart on the center of the rail. So it's like 9.5 feet each direction. There is a concern with the Federal Railroad Association that these could create a sight distance hazard. This is a spur line. Sight distance hazards are very common, but nobody likes them. We understand that. So he is coming here tomorrow to look at this. I sent him a number of pictures. He's a very decent guy to work with, by the way. And he's coming here tomorrow to take a look at that, to see if he really had a problem. The state gave me a sign-off, meaning the state of Iowa DOT is in charge of rail safety for the state of Iowa. And they basically said, since this is a spur line, you have a stop sign on both sides, it's slow enough, they don't see this as an issue. But the federal guy has not signed off yet. I'm hoping to get that tomorrow. And that's the north. South and the north are exactly the same type of structure. Foundation might be a little different with thing, but about the same. Oh, great. You can't see that, can you? That's a detailed cost estimate. And the cost estimate for this project for the construction is $3.4 million. Then we added 10% contingency, or another $342,000, to get it to about $3.76 million is what the engineer's estimated cost is. There is one cost that has not been included. We had talked to the Burlington Junction about doing runaround tracks, so we didn't have to build during construction. As they saw the plans, and I mean just recently they saw the detailed plans, they're like, well, we didn't expect to have to move the track this far, so it's going to be costly. I'm thinking they're going to want, like, it looks in the nature of $150,000. Well, when I heard that Friday, I said, well, maybe we should design a temporary structure so we could build it under construction. We are looking at that. At the same time, Burlington Northern is talking to Klingner, because Klingner is their engineer, about what it would take. The north runaround didn't seem to be as much of a problem for them. The south one was a big problem. So I thought they were just doing that, and then the city would reimburse them. That's kind of the way when Jim and I met with the rail company, and this was 3 or 4 months ago, that was kind of the deal. And we wouldn't put it in the contract because we didn't want the contractor to do it. We wanted Burlington Junction to do the work.
Okay.
And that's still how it is, but that may be changing. Other than that, a couple of other things in this cost estimate, if you got into any details, there's a $420,000 cost right there which is for compacted sandy clay boro or gradation 11. And that is because on the first phase of this project, our structurals are very sensitive to what kind of material goes in on their foundation, and they want certain strength. And when we were taking material out of the riverfront, we were finding that was basically junk. And so we ended up with a fairly big cost change order, a couple of $100,000. So we put it in here. If we find good material, then that goes down. So we think we're in pretty good shape, except for a few little railroad coordination that's ongoing as we speak.
So is there just a lot of sand down there? Is that the problem?
There was a lot of garbage. They were literally finding pieces of wood and lumber and pieces of, like
Old Burlington?
rock, and yes.
Well, I mean, there's lots of photos of old wooden roads along the riverfront.
Yeah.
And I think they just pushed a lot of it into the ground. And so sometimes we'd find where you could tell it had been dug up and somebody put good fill in, but a lot of it, and I'd say 80% of it was bad in the past. So last time we did let's assume we can use 80% and we'll put 20 in, and this time we flipped it. And we said, let's assume we're gonna replace 80% and we'll use 20.
Sounds good.
Okay, so this is a picture I just took today. Thank you, Eric. So this size right here is what that will look like, and it will be sitting about right here and another one right here on that side, right in here. If you you can see a long way both directions. So we don't think, and I've got guys that do this kind of stuff all the time, that this is gonna be a sight distance problem. If you use the Federal Railroad Association's criteria for a main line, you almost can't do it, because you have to be so far back, then you got problems with the next road. You know what I mean? You don't have enough room. So we're gonna be looking for a variance one way or the other if they tell us that we have to do that. The other one on the other end is not a problem. All right, so that was that one. This is just another one just showing you that telephone pole, or I'm sorry, power pole, is the main power coming into the plant. We are gonna have to adjust that pole, but I think Alliant knows that. They don't like it.
Can we just bury the line?
What's that? We have not, they haven't chose to go underground with it. Not sure we couldn't. That's a good question.
I mean, if we're gonna dig all the way up to the Market Street lift station, why can't we just bury the line?
We are, the flood protection will be over here, and then we'll be cutting across. So we thought we could just move it just slightly, and the reason we needed to move it is because he needs to get to this the whole time during construction, that garage. So we were gonna have a road come in and kind of turn like that, come in and turn, and this was in the way of that access, was primarily. But that's a good point, is to see if maybe we could. Back to this picture, we tried to tell them to move that and try to put that inside the flood protection, and they were not willing to move that at all. And we didn't have a way of going around it very easily. So that's staying
Well,
at this point.
we need to have a conversation about that.
This is the reason, going this way, so like I said, this is where that structure will be, and we don't see a sight distance that way, or coming this direction or this direction. We didn't see a sight distance problem. But if we have to do a runaround track, what Junction told us is we have to come all the way back to here and come out this way, which would put us on Front Street. So when we started looking at the cost of doing that, it didn't make sense to me. So my structural says, hey, that's gonna be a really expensive to do this when you have an hour a day. And I said, what kind of expense? And he says, well, you're looking at $150,000, $200,000. I said, well, we're looking at it the other way too. So we're working on that as we speak. But that is from about that yellow on, that is all Burlington Northern track. So this piece would have to start coming this way. And I think that's it. So that's all I had for today.
All right. Anybody have any questions of Leo?
You talking about North Front Street,
Okay.
What's that?
North Front Street, the walls come across, changes there.
So, oh, I'm sorry, yes, that's a good point, I didn't even think about that one. So, this one, we're talking about closing this off permanently. So this road would end up having signs or barricades or something, so you don't go there. So this is a wall going across, is that what you meant? Okay. So that,
To be able to connect the existing structure with what you're installing.
so now this, the closure structure is here, and then we tie into this embankment, and we bring a wall across that road. We had talked about one time doing a temporary removable wall, but I think people had thought that there's not a whole lot of value at having that road in there like
I use
that.
it every day, 5 times a day.
There's a lot of people that use it every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you,
Boat traffic uses it quite a lot. And people come down Riverfront Park use it. We'll have some pushback on that.
so do you want us to look into designing a removable?
Well, I mean, we're putting I'd almost rather have a drop-in
A
aluminum gate.
droppable removable?
I would.
I don't think it's a huge issue to do it. It's a operational thing. You'll have to,
Well, I wouldn't want you to do it solely for me, but there is a lot of, that Riverfront Park, it's a lot of traffic. And the boaters, a lot of them use that because they come right off Washington Street or off Front, and then they use that north ramp. Now, I know that the push is gonna be trying to get them to use the south ramp eventually, but there's a lot of boaters that
you
use
blow
that.
that up or
Well,
not?
But that being said, they use it because of it's a matter of convenience. You're right, you can't make a right-hand turn off of Main Street to go down onto Front Street with a boat. It's too tight. But they would use the parking lot,
Yeah.
which is,
So this is
Right.
again, one of those, posts that the pieces will fit into.
Yeah.
And we have it kind of impeding on the road a little bit. They don't want us to move this direction, the railroad didn't want us to, so we might have to move this axis a little bit over if we were gonna do that, which isn't, I don't think is a real big deal.
What's Nick, you recall what the elevation is there at that point?
Pretty high.
It's pretty high, isn't it? It's like 22 foot.
Top of the curb is 22.5 foot or so.
Yeah.
But the concern is gonna be the closure structure.
Yeah.
and-
This.
And having a proper width, especially with the vertical issues on the overpass side.
Well, I'd like to keep it open with a temporary if possible.
We can look in some, we'll
Just
look at an
because it's the
alternative tomorrow,
riverfront,
actually.
We don't wanna make it more,
how much money is it saving us by not putting that in there?
By leaving it as a
Permanent structure.
the answer's not one you probably want to hear. It's probably similar. It's just more, it's similar cost. What we always tell people is removable wall and permanent wall is about the same cost.
Okay.
It's not much cheaper to do removable. Foundation is identical.
What about from a maintenance standpoint, Nick? Is it more difficult, less difficult?
You didn't put it up.
I mean, if the cost is the same and it's just a matter of putting the panels up, I think I'd rather have a removable panel too. That's my 2 cents. What do you guys think?
that would be me.
The only thing I would tell you is I don't think I can move that piece. So I could make this road kind of slide a little bit to that direction.
It's
Again,
plenty,
and again,
it's
for-
plenty wide.
For what you're doing, I
Yeah.
don't think there's
Yeah.
any, for what you guys are.
Again, as long as the cost is the same. If we gotta start moving roads and stuff and then the cost jumps up,
Yeah.
then put in the permanent wall.
I'll go look at it right away. I'd like to see, but I
Okay.
don't, I really don't think it'll be much difference in
Okay.
cost. Anything else? That was a big one. I forgot about that.
What was it you brought up, Nick, about by the pump station there on the south side?
Rather than yell for the back.
I know that they have a shut-off point on that Alliant.
if it's not going to, I didn't know that it wasn't. If it's not going to be behind flood protection, we have to have a serious conversation with them about moving it behind that.
I would
Because
agree.
if they shut that off, if we get to 24, we have to have alternative power source for the wastewater treatment plant. Now, we have a generator, but during heavy rain events, I don't know that it will allow for that third pump to kick on. That's a Dawn question.
Find out.
But
So, but Don has mentioned to me another line. I thought it was, to be honest, I thought you have a generator and you have a primary line. Did you need a third line? But
well, no, the whole point of the line, the additional line is having that power cut. And that was his concern last year, is if they had another power source, they could have kept going. Well, that's your power.
Right.
And if your power gets cut, then yes, you need
so
something
you
else,
couldn't run
or
your
you need.
generator?
You could.
Okay.
I mean, we have a generator. I
But
don't
the
know.
generator, you said, doesn't put out enough power to run the third pump.
I have no idea if you have a large rain
Right.
event, if you're gonna be able to kick in that third.
It's,
I'd be curious why Alliant wouldn't want to protect their asset.
It's
if
expensive.
All they had to do was move it,
It's very expensive.
to move it,
Yeah.
but then they wouldn't have to worry about it again.
And our problem with trying to come out here is you've got this box and there's all kinds of underground problems.
so what, if we put that on them, they would have to HESCO that then, if,
That's
or
right.
something like that.
Well, they're probably not gonna do anything about it.
Yeah,
They're gonna let
probably.
it flood and they're gonna kill the power when it gets to a certain height.
And we have to have the power for the lift station, otherwise
Correct.
it's all for naught.
That's a further conversation we're gonna have. I don't
Okay.
have anything else.
Did it not make sense just to run this removable wall straight up Market Street and not have the lags back and forth?
If we would have done that, which we had a version of that, so now you've got this box and you've got all kinds of problems with access in here where it comes back and it floods back, this box floods back, and Don did not want this inside of the flood protection, so we would have had to redo a lot of things on the box. So
Okay.
it wasn't as simple as that. And then if we came up further, this box gets closer and closer. That wall needs a huge foundation.
Footing, yeah.
So we really didn't have any way of doing it. We tried.
There's an alignment problem too,
Yeah.
further flood protection. If you're gonna have, you can't have, like, if you're to use kind of the angle that force main goes across at, you're gonna have a problem with closure structure,
Okay.
at that railroad, so you're gonna have to create something else. And then the approximation of that market, combination sewer is also a problem for the foot.
Yes.
So the footing on the river side was about 12 by 12, right?
Yes.
Is it the same running up Market Street, 12 by 12?
Very close. The only difference is that as it's going up, it's, like you said, we have it kind of pulled in a different direction. Usually, they put it so that the wall pushes this direction, but we had to put these in
Yeah.
to change it. They didn't want anything underground pushing it over here. And that's because you have the box and the walls. Those are deep walls in that pump station.
Any further questions for Leo? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, next up would be a public hearing, consideration of sale of property locally known as 232 South Sixth Street, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions. Eric, please.
This was a lot, the home was just recently demoed. It's one that we sold a couple years ago to a couple, lived out of town. They were hoping to be able to fix it up, but as they got further into it, the foundation was just terrible condition and just not something they could handle. So they, I guess, decided to not move forward with their purchase, essentially by not completing that rehab. So it was demolished. The property owner to the north, Becky Anderson, has submitted a bid to expand her lot size. Did contact a neighbor to the south as well and didn't have interest at this time. She has a larger lot, so looking to sell to a neighbor to expand their lot size.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? No? Number 3, public hearing, consideration of permanent encroachment agreement with McConnell Lofts LLC for encroachment into the North 4th Street right-of-way adjacent to 206-208 North 4th Street, Burlington, Iowa.
So this was submitted by McConnell Lofts LLC, looking to add 2 accessible entrances on the North 4th Street right-of-way. Currently for the restaurant, the Major Oak now is the name of it, and then this is the primary entrance for the apartments or condos on the upper floors. So looking to put in 2 similar type accessible ramps as you go down the slope, using that slope to their advantage with stairs on the backside and railings. So this is the edge of the building wall, this is the ramp, and this is the curb line. So it projects out about 5 feet and still maintains about 8 feet of sidewalk between the ramp and the curb. It allows accessible entrance for the building.
Okay, recommended? All right. Any questions, gang?
What was the name of the restaurant again?
That's the Major Oak.
Major Oak, it's a new restaurant.
Major Oak, like the tree?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should try it, it's a British restaurant, it's really good.
Fun, thanks.
Thanks, Eric. And then number 5, motion for final adoption of ordinance amending ordinances related to the designating of an area, Burlington, Iowa, as Burlington Urban Revitalization Area. Eric.
No changes from the previous readings, just adding some space north of the existing urban renewal area to bring in between Columbia and Washington Street and 4th and 8th Street, I believe, to that area that would qualify for expanded tax abatement.
And we were going to waive that last week, but we couldn't, so. Any questions on that? No, okay. Number 6, motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an ordinance amending section 73.04, special speed restrictions of chapter 73 speed regulations of the Burlington Municipal Code. Hi.
This hasn't changed since the previous reading. As a reminder, there are 2 additions for speed regulations. The first being out at the new road on Hinkle Drive and Broadway. And the second one is in the Stone Garden area. The manager of that area has talked to us about reducing the speed limit in that area. And the traffic flow in that area has changed significantly with a gate structure that had been installed on Valley Street. So there's no longer through traffic, and so I think it makes sense. So
Okay.
any questions, I can answer them.
Any questions, gang? Anybody feel like me, want to waive the third and final? Okay, we'll see if we can't get that done. Number 7, resolution awarding contract for the 2020 Fifth and Valley Street parking lot project. What are you mumbling?
I got to write down to waive.
Okay. All right. Oh, thanks, sorry.
The resolution in front of you would award contract to Brandt Construction, who is the low bidder on the Fifth and Valley parking lot. The engineer's estimate for this project was $600,000. The low bid came in at $689,862, so significantly higher than what the estimate was. Knowing that there are some finite funds here, Stephanie, Jim, and I had a conversation about that. We have TIF funds available to cover the difference. However, we would recommend awarding contract at this amount. We've had some conversations with the contractor. There are some things that we would change order unit pricing in for a lesser product. We had some stamped and colored concrete in there, and we would just go back to regular concrete, and it would bring down the price significantly. We don't have those dollars, can't really technically have those conversations and get them awarded until you have this process done. So we should be able to bring the price down by quite a bit to bring that under.
Any idea what quite a bit is?
60.
Okay.
We also have reached back out to IDOLS, which is the $50,000 grant to do the bioretention area stuff. We originally had a $75,000 grant when we were doing the Tama Green Alley project. We actually had to reduce it down because they're only a 50% match. Because costs came in higher, we've actually reached back out to them to say, hey, can we get some more money back because our costs came in higher than what we had estimated. So we're still in that conversation as well. So I don't have money concerns about it necessarily, just wanted to address that it is a little higher bid. I think some of the bioretention probably is something that a lot of these people haven't done. So I don't know if that's the reason why. But.
Okay. All right, any questions, gang? Moving on to the proposed consent agenda. First up would be a resolution approving nuisance and demolition abatements for various properties. Anybody see any questions on those? Hearing none. Number 2 would be a resolution approving the purchase of a property with a corrective PIN 16-07-16 or 176-001 for future Mason Road stormwater improvements. Nick?
This resolution is a corrective one to one that you passed in April, May.
Okay.
For the purchase of the Mason Road property. In there, the parcel number had a 1 instead of a 0, and so there's some recorder problems. So that's all that this is. So I can answer any questions. I mean, we were paying about $27,000 for that property, but you had
Okay.
approved it then, so
Yeah.
just wanted to let you know.
Any questions? No, okay. Number 3, resolution approving the master facilities service agreement, including the addendum 1 with Interstate Power and Light Company.
This is a renewal contract with Alliant Energy. We'd approved one back in 2017. Essentially, it allows us to hire Alliant to go out and fix some of the city-owned lights, install poles. With equipment that they have, they would charge us time and material. So we actually have done this. We've used them on the couple of poles that they set on West Burlington Avenue. And so this is just simply a renewal of that master services agreement. So I would recommend awarding. We've used it a couple times.
Okay.
So
Any questions? All right, moving on. We're going to set a date for public hearings as following. Consideration of sale of Lot 1 in Parkview subdivision, 713 Shokokan Drive, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions. B would be consideration of a sale of property locally known as 1116 or 1116 Spring Street, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions. And the third one is a consideration of plans and specifications for the 2020 Walnut Street Combined Sewer Repair Project. Moving on to discussion items. First up is a third-party inspection database system. Fire Marshal Crooks, please come up. Welcome.
Thank you. Wanted to take a few minutes and kind of explain to you a little bit about a program that the fire department is wanting to get going, hopefully within the next 30 days or so. This is a program that we have been contemplating going to for quite some time now, but conditions weren't right. We had too many irons in the fire at one point or another, and I think now might be the right time to pull the trigger on this. So, as many of you guys probably know, I'm a one-person fire prevention bureau. And because of that, I wear a lot of different hats. And so I'm always looking for ways to be better, more creative, be able to have a better use of my time, be a little bit more efficient, and so forth and so on. Back in 2005, when I stepped in as the fire marshal, all of my inspections were done by filling out a piece of paper. I would leave a copy with the property owner or the manager at the time. And either later in that day, or I would usually save it all for Friday, I would sit down, I would type in all the inspection notices, create the building inspection stuff, and then I would mail all that stuff out with postal services. Today, with the use of technology, I actually complete all of my inspections on my tablet. This has an air card in it, and so I'm able to sit down, I'm able to take pictures of the violations if they have them. I'm able to go over the inspection notices with the property owner. I'm able to email them and create the billing statement all before I leave the property. And when I get in my truck and leave, that inspection is fully completed, and I don't have to touch it again. And it's been quite a time saver. In addition to that, using that kind of technology, I'm able to keep up with my emails, my personal phone messages, that kind of stuff throughout the day as well. So what are third-party inspections? Well, with commercial properties, they are, depending on the use, depending on the business, depending on the building, the occupant load, there's a lot of factors that go into fire and building code requirements. And it's not just building and fire code requirements, it's insurance requirements as well. Sprinkler systems, fire alarm systems are probably the most common of these fire protection devices, but they're not the only ones. So when a business moves into a specific building, codes determine what it is that they're going to need to put in. Codes also determine what that maintenance is required on those systems. So it's up to the property owner or the manager to work with an independent third-party inspection service to come in and provide the maintenance that is required on those systems. Some of them might be every 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, all the way up to 5 years. It all depends on the type of system and the types of maintenances that are required. So at that point, we end up, the third-party inspector then emails me or mails me or faxes me the inspection report. And not all of them do that. But then I review it, I scan it in, I save it electronically. I have 6 filing cabinets in my office. 4 of them are dedicated to individual addresses on these commercial properties, and I have to keep that stuff for eternity. So as you can imagine, being a little bit more efficient with this kind of stuff is going to be a big use of time. So what we're looking at going to is called the compliance engine. The compliance engine is a 100% web-based data collection software that is owned by a company by the name of Brycer. They're currently in partnership with over 4,000 communities nationwide, and these include the cities of Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. There's currently 18 cities in Iowa that are using this software, and those 6 up there are just some of them that are kind of in our neighborhood. Last week I sat in a meeting up in Davenport with the fire marshals from most of these cities, and I talked to them about their experiences with the compliance engine, and they were all very favorable. Most of them told me this is like adding 1 to 2 inspectors to my office, and just be able to send out the notices, be able to collect the data, be able to maintain and make sure that people are actually maintaining their systems like the codes require. So Clinton was the first department to go with the compliance engine. They've done it. They've been with them since late 2012. Muscatine is probably the newest, and I believe they've been with them less than 6 months. So what is the compliance engine? Well, the compliance engine, they collect, organize, and categorize all third-party inspection reports. Basically, they're the ones that they get in and they work between the property owners, the managers, and the third-party inspectors, and they send out inspection notices. They send out usually 37 days in advance. They follow up with the inspections to find out if everybody's in compliance or if there's specific maintenance items that need to be completed. They usually, or they will send out either through hard copy or through phone calls, reminding them that these specific items need to be done. The nice thing about it is it's absolutely 100% free to cities. So again, it's like getting 1 or 2 additional people to work with me for absolutely no cost. How it works is that the third-party inspection companies, when they go to log into the system, they pay a $15 fee to submit that report. In the current fire code, it already allows us to be doing this. So there is nothing that I'm going to ask of you to do tonight. I just want you guys to be aware that this is something that we are looking to go to. So what happens is the compliance engine is going to contact the property owner and let them know that there's a specific inspection due. The property owner then will call a inspection company of their choosing. And the other thing is that they make sure that all of the contact information is up to date, which is something that we run into all the time. We actually had an incident over the weekend that we had absolutely no idea how to get a hold of a company, and we've got it resolved as of today, but a couple of the days too short. But they will make sure that the contact information is up to date. They then, once the inspection company comes down and they do their inspection, when they return, they upload that into the compliance engine software. And then if there's anything that needs to be followed up on, the compliance engine will be in contact with the property owner as well as the inspection company to make sure that those repairs get done. So the items or the specific fire protection systems that we are looking at to target right now are, again, fire alarm systems, sprinkler systems, both wet and dry, Standpipes. Standpipes are a hollow pipe. Most of them are not filled with water, some of them are. But that's what the fire department would connect to get water from one point to the other, for us to be able to connect to on the other end and spray water with hoses. Private fire hydrants. There are so many private fire hydrants in town that don't get inspected or flowed like they're supposed to. The water department, they flush fire hydrants every 6 months here in town. But if we have a private fire hydrant like the ones out by the old Shopco building are all privately owned, there's a lot of big factories that have them. A lot of if they're required because of the location on the property or the size of the building, or there's a lot of different reasons why a company might own their private fire hydrants. Backflow protection devices, that's governed by the plumbing code. And that is something that is governed by or overlooked by the inspectors downstairs. Backflow devices are for when they have large amounts of water come into a commercial building. Once the water leaves the public system, it goes through a valve and then it can't come back into the public system. We had an incident about 3 or 4 years ago down where a big water main break down off of Des Moines Avenue. And because of that, GI Case had some issues with the backflow preventers at that time, and the water actually came back out of their building and went back into the city system. Once it's all been fixed now, obviously, and they have 2 new backflow preventers down there that basically their own little island. Commercial kitchen hood suppression systems. Those are items that have to be done every 6 months. Most people are unaware that we had 3 commercial kitchen fires in the first 2 months of this year. Luckily, all 3 of them were very minor. 2 of them were caused by an excess buildup of grease, and I'm pretty certain that the 3rd one also, grease played a role in that one as well. Then commercial kitchen hood cleaning. It depends. There's 4 different things that requires that, and it depends on the amount and the type of cooking. But if they do a lot of frying with oil, it could be like every 3 months that they need to have the hood system cleaned. The vast majority of restaurants in this town get them cleaned about once a year. So those are the ones that we're looking to target right now. And there are more systems that we could add to this the compliance engine as time goes on. Emergency electrical generators is one of them that we're looking at or considering. This is what I would see when I would log on to the website. So as you can see on there, I have access to all the premise information. If we ever had a situation where we didn't have the proper contact information, this is just another resource that I could go to get it. In this particular example, they have 318 properties that are compliant. I wouldn't have to spend my day focusing on those because I already know that those systems are compliant. There's nothing I need to do with them. And again, in this particular slide, they're showing 89 properties being deficient. I could actually look on there and I could see what properties are deficient and just what those deficiencies are. If I need to get involved as far as forcing the repairs to be made, then I can do that at this time. And it also offers deficiency tracking. As far as analytics are concerned, the fire marshal from Iowa City was telling me today actually that they're at 90% compliance with all of their fire protection devices in Iowa City right now. They've been using the compliance engine for just a little over 2 years. What are our goals? Why are we wanting to do this? Well, we're wanting to do this, obviously, we want to make sure that these required systems are properly maintained and that they are going to function if they are called upon. Sometimes we run into people are wanting to paint, and we find sprinkler heads that are painted, they're not going to work. There's a lot of things. The fire hydrants out by the Shopco building, they had to replace one here about a year ago because it just simply wouldn't work. We also want to confirm that code compliance of required protection systems, make sure that those systems are, the fire code does require this stuff, so really it is up to me to make sure that the property owners are maintaining these systems as required. We want to reduce false alarms. That is one of the big driving points. Both Clinton and Iowa City have told me that they have seen the false alarms reduce, but it's hard to really track that. ISO, we were at an ISO rating for 4 for many, many years. The lower the number, the better the insurance rates are. So ISO comes into town about every 5 years, and they evaluate our city, and they look at a lot of different things, including our dispatch center, our water department, our water source, the amount of gallons that we have, but then they really dive into the fire department. They look at our vehicles, they look at our vehicle maintenance, they look at our training, they look at our staffing, the types of calls that we have, but they really go in and into our inspections as well. So it's really important for us to maintain these inspections, be able to show ISO when they come in. It's just another way that we can help maintain that 3. And that, again, this is what commercial properties, what their insurance rates are based on. But obviously, we also want to be more efficient and reduce the time spent on administrative duties. So Brian Greer from Iowa City sent me this quote today and in an email, and I thought it was kind of spot on. It's exactly what we're looking for. So with the amount of systems we have in Iowa City, I wasn't able to keep up with the submissions of new systems, annual inspections, and other paperwork. The compliance engine has made this more streamlined, and it takes up less of my time. It is nice having an email or letter sent out for deficiencies, past due systems, and even the reminder email that their system is coming due for inspections. I have been very pleased with this support from Brycer, and I definitely see the benefit of using this system. And that's Brian Greer from the Fire Marshal up in Iowa City. So with that, I want to, before we ask for questions, I want you guys to know right up front that we are not springing on any new codes into anybody by doing this. We're simply enforcing the codes that we already have in place for maintaining fire-required systems or fire protection devices. This is going to help me. It's going to save me a lot of time. And again, it's going to take some off of my shoulders a little bit. So, questions?
So the cost of the city is free?
Cost of the city is absolutely free.
So what are they collecting the fees?
So when the third-party inspectors come in, they do that. When they log the system and put the inspection fee into that, then they are charged a $15 fee at that time. Now, if there's deficiencies where they have to go back, there is no additional fee. They only pay that fee during the initial inspection.
Okay.
Now, I will tell you that it's about a 50-50 shot on where that $15 fee goes. So I did speak with a local fire protection company here in town. They pass that $15 fee on to the consumer as a filing fee. They have had no complaints with their customers for that $15 fee. The other fire marshals have also told me that they have heard very little to no complaints from any of the consumers with this.
You mentioned Iowa City had a 90% compliance rate when they switched over to the compliance engine.
They have a 90% compliance rate now. They didn't have before.
Now, any idea what it was before?
And I don't know.
Oh, okay, but it was higher, obviously.
No, it was way lower. So
Okay.
the big thing for
Lower.
doing this is that there's a lot of places that I do not go and inspect because they do not require fire inspections as part of the ordinance. And so places I go to, if they, inspect if they have compressed gases, if they have flammable combustible liquids, if, I do liquor license inspections, so I go into a lot of commercial kitchens, that kind of stuff. If they don't have anything that falls in the line where a fire inspection is required, I don't necessarily go there unless I have a complaint. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a sprinkler system or they don't have a private fire hydrant or something along those lines. I don't necessarily know if they're making their maintenance requirements like they're supposed to be. So what we're going to be doing here is Brycer, or the compliance engine, will end up contacting these people and they will let them know, hey, you've got a required system that needs maintenance. This is the maintenance schedule by city ordinance. It'll be on city letterhead with my signature, the letter that they get. So it's not like they're going to be getting something from some unknown company. All of this stuff is already pre-approved. So basically, we're just going to be asking the businesses that have these systems that are required to make sure that, and it's our job to make sure that they're following through with the maintenance requirements.
Yeah. No, it sounds slicker and quicker, and sounds like our town will be safer. So.
And I'll have all of that right here at my fingertips, so
Okay.
I'll be able
Awesome.
to log on and see it anytime. So.
And then if there's if there's a code compliance or a code provision issue, you're still the fallback person.
Correct.
It's not this company.
Correct. If there is an issue where there is maybe a
Interpretation of
complaint or
code,
interpretation, yes, it comes to me.
Okay, good.
All this company does is they collect all the data.
Okay. Any other questions, gang?
So hopefully we'll have that going here within the next month, so.
Okay.
I like the price.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank
Crooks,
you.
appreciate it. Next up, Chief of Police on the COPS grant.
You'll remember back, I believe it was in March, I had come up and talked to you about some of the items on this presentation. As a matter of fact, it's the same presentation. I just added a couple slides at the end, but I talked to you about the COPS hiring program or the COPS grant that we had made application for. Last fall, we had community groups that had gotten together to try and combat crime and violence in the city and some things that were going on last year and in the fall. And much of the conversations lended consensus that we needed additional police officers. During the budget season, I talked about 2 additional police officers, which we were unable to fund in the budget itself. So I applied for this grant to try and look at a way to at least have 1 position partially funded. So that's the COPS hiring program through the Bureau of Justice Administration, or the COPS program they have. Back in 2015, we did this same program and hired 2 more additional officers. We went from 43 to 45 officers sworn, and initiated the POP unit, which still has 1 active member at this time. Due to attrition and just hiring and people leaving, there's a time lag there for me to get to 45, as we discussed during the budget season. So that grant in 2015 is closed, so we're at 45 sworn. So it's just a matter, like I said, of getting them trained, getting them ready to go on the street. So this application was put in there, and what I'm looking at is a person to organize intelligence data and be a liaison basically with our law enforcement partners, not just locally, but with our federal partners. As you've seen our successes last fall when we had a lot of our federal partners in town working on several search warrants and targeting a major narcotics trafficking in our area at that time. It didn't eliminate the that's still happening in town, but it sure put a dent in it last fall. So we're looking at continuing that on. So I'll cut to the cost like we talked about before. The cost here is pretty much the same. As you can see, the cost share that they were willing to supply, which is a maximum they're willing to give us, is $125,000 that I applied for. There were some additional opportunities at the time that I talked to you about and asked about that we may be able to submit our application for. As you see, the deadline is passed for that. I did not submit that application because we were still in the idea of making a decision on this. As you see, there's a local share of $143,889 that there was questions about whether or not that's going to be able to be funded. Some of the things we talked about the last time to consider, it was submitted on March 11th, and of course, what happened after March 11th? You know, in the latter part of March, we talked about COVID, some things there, and revenues that weren't quite going to come in line with where we were at, and so there's still some additional strains on there. So there's a time between when we submitted the application and to the award. So we received the award letter on June 25th of 2020. So this is the additional information. And of course, it's right there, how it spells it out, just in a different way. And you can read that, but I have 45 days from June 25th to either accept the award or not accept the award. So today I come before you just for that consideration, and I've spoken with the city manager about this award, and I believe he has the document itself and some of the things that we can do to ask for an extension. So I kind of refer to this on the next slide here. So in order, a potential timeline, if we did accept the award, maybe hiring would be completed by July of 2021 to hire that one additional officer. That's with those expenses that are on there. So that's when it would begin to be able to receive or draw down that money, and there'd be some commitment from the city financially for the rest of that officer's salary for those 3 years, and then an additional full year or an additional year of full funding that position. So you're talking about 4 years, a 4-year commitment to take the department personnel from 45 to 46 sworn to fund this position if you accept this grant. So some of our options, we can ask them for basically a 36-month. It says 18-month. It should be 36-month, I believe. No, that's right. An 18-month grant extension if we start July of 2021, and it would take us through December 31st of 2025 by the time we got done with this grant. That's if they grant us the extension, the hardship that we talk about, or we would refer to in the application for the extension of the COPS award that's in this grant. So there's implications for the fiscal year 2022 city budget implications of the additional expense, like I had talked about in the previous slide. And then, of course, the consideration of will the extension be granted, and the budget projections. What are we going to have in the budget for fiscal year 22 through fiscal year 26? If the grant is accepted and not utilized, and this is the predicament it puts me in, what would be the impact on if this grant becomes available, there's more funds available, or they offer more federal funding, maybe fully fund the position for 3 years. What are they going to say if I accept a grant and never use it, and actually earmark that money and never utilize it? I'm afraid that it may have a negative impact on them accepting future applications or awarding future applications if I accept it and don't utilize it. The last option is not to accept the award, stay at 45, not award this position or this grant, not accept the award, and just moving forward with 45 officers at the current, salaries that they have, and we'll try to maintain doing what we do with the personnel we have, the 2 POP officers without the additional 3rd for the analytics and intelligence gathering, and just maybe move things around in the department to have a person there that's capable of doing that. So that's the 3rd option. So I come to you today to just basically let you know that the award has come. It's $125,000 over 3 years, but there's also a cost share and some budget implications for the city if we accept the award, and what we could do with the award. And if we don't accept the award, I would just like to know before the 45-day deadline, so we can basically tell them, thanks, but we're just going through a time now, especially since COVID, and the revenues are down. So I understand that financially. No way I could predict that back in March. Just trying to get us to the point where the community is asking for more officers from last fall, and trying to find a way that we can supplement that.
I guess where I would be, Chief, is, if we can file for the extension, yes, because of our situation. By the same token, I'm of the frame of mind we accept it, and we'll have to figure it out. We'll have to figure out how we go forward in future budget cycles. But that's my opinion. Anybody have questions or?
I agree. That
thoughts?
position's important to me, so I think we just try to we work to get through it.
I agree. I wish that COVID had made us gentler, more law-abiding people, but I don't think so. So what I hear from citizens is they feel like they want to be protected. So I'm for funding it, or accepting the award,
Feels a
rather.
nod, yes.
Yeah, I
Robert?
think we all agreed
Okay.
when we started council here that one of our goals was to get another police officer, and this will help that goal, so, yes.
Make it happen. But I think filing for the extension would be wise. It gives us a little bit of breathing room just in case.
And I'll stay in contact with the city manager in regards
Okay.
to his thoughts, and he'll probably have some correspondence in
Okay.
regards to that, how that happens, if that's what you want to do. I'm here just to offer
Yeah,
the raw information, and, of course, I would defer to him on the financial side of it, how we're going to fund it, and when we're going to make it operational. And I will additionally talk to the program director or our program liaison through this grant, that we can ask those type of questions about a 36-month extension or an 18-month extension, and trying to get the can kicked just a little bit down the road, so we can see where we're at.
just
I know-
give us some flexibility, yeah.
Yes, and at least we can talk about it during this budget season, and project that out maybe for next July.
Okay,
So,
outstanding.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. All right, next up for discussion is a four-way stop sign at Court Street and Osborne Street. Mr. McGregor.
So the reason why I have this as a discussion item is just because it's a little bit more detailed than creating a resolution that would put down a four-way stop sign. So I wanted to have it kind of as a discussion item and move from there. I guess I have it, don't I? So just as a reminder to what the intersection that we're talking about is Course and Osborne. It is kind of the flow-through of Sunnyside traffic. It is just north of it has a kind of an interesting intersection that you don't typically see.
Hungry
And
Bear's right there, right?
say what?
Yeah.
Hungry Bear's.
Hungry
yes.
Bear is right at the
Right
very
after
top.
that, yeah.
And so currently there are two red dots that I put on there just because you can't see stop signs, but there are two stop signs for east and westbound traffic on Core Street. So there was a request to make this intersection a four-way stop. I don't know the basis on it, but there is some speed through there, but you don't put stop signs up to slow people down. That's the number one thing that MUTC says, is that they're not used to control speed. But I drive through there quite a bit, and I do know that there are some people that drive through there kind of fast. As a reminder, this intersection used to actually have lights. In 2009 and 10, they were removed by my predecessor's predecessor, and then there was a temporary stop sign set up, and then a follow-up for permanent where they are currently located. And so we had to take a look at this, similar to other conversations that we've had about stop sign installation. I just said the acronym. It's Traffic Control Device Guidelines. There's warranting factors to justify whether or not a stop sign is needed. On the ones that we've done, I think since I've been here, have never been to a roadway that have had the amount of traffic that Sunnyside has. And so this actually, it jumps from a moderate road to a major roadway classification. And so there's a little bit more steps that you need to do when you need to do traffic counts. You also need to take pedestrian counts into place, but then it's 8 consecutive hours, and it has to meet certain thresholds. So I wanted to show you the traffic counts, just kind of over the last decade, what has happened since the change was made in 2009. You can see in 2010 there was about 4,000 on the Sunnyside section, and then 4,300 on the Osborne section. Course on the east side had about 1,400, almost closer to 15, and then on the west side was 420. And so when the DOT does these traffic counts, they don't always put the traffic counters in the same locations. So it's hard from year to year necessarily to get the same apples to apples comparison on what's going on. In 2014, they didn't actually have a number there. It was often an insert somewhere else, so I had to grab that and put it there. It actually shifted to 4,600 there, and then 2,000 on course. In 2018, you can see it jumps up to 5,400, and then 1,900 over to course. So you can see there has been an increase in that area of the intersection. I looked beyond that to see what is the cause for the difference in traffic patterns. My first thought process was the elementary school or the middle school further out west. The traffic counts on Sunnyside further west over by Irish Ridge have actually gone down. So I don't understand if they maybe are coming off of Roosevelt and the traffic counter where that was located, they weren't hitting it or something. So it's hard to tell. But as I get into this, if we were to make a decision that you want to look at adding a stop sign there, I would recommend doing a more specific traffic count at that intersection prior to doing it. When Mr. Kanoki was here, they did do that for the removal process of that, where they sat down and they did an 8-hour period. Prior to this, we just didn't have the time and the manpower to set that process up, but I would recommend doing that. So traffic counts is one aspect. Accidents is another. So there's crash data that gets uploaded to the web. I have the last decade on there to show you. The MUTC guidelines show for the last 4 months, if there's been 4 or more crashes on this type, that it would be a warranting factor. We've had 4 accidents in that intersection, and I actually went further out than that. There are some to the north and some to the south. You can kind of see the gray dots off to the right-hand side. There's that blue circle. There are some that are a little bit outside of that. It looks like they were just property damage, and they were kind of too far outside of the intersection to kind of include. But there's only been 4 accidents in the intersection over the last decade. And that kind of gives you they generate a report, and so that's where this came from. The biggest issue at this intersection is sight distance. This is on course looking, not really looking east, but more northeast, to show kind of the problem that is created by that weird angle from Sunnyside coming down to Osborne. As you can see there's the yellow post with the cabinet there. That is actually existing infrastructure that used to control the traffic lights there. It currently runs, there's a pole right here with an amber flashing light to give indication, I think, to slow down. I think they were there before to just kind of let people know that there's an intersection coming up. I think that actually is an obstacle itself. But as we move through this conversation, we may even talk about removing that from this intersection. So the one alternative that I wanted to bring up to a 4-way stop sign was the idea of making course on the west side of Osborne a 1-way, only westbound, because that is the area where the sight distance is the issue. I made it just the 1 block, and I drew arrows on the areas where you could access Sunnyside or Osborne. I know that in the past that road was probably more heavily traveled with the cemetery entrance being there, but since there's the one on Sunnyside, I think most of that traffic has shifted over there. I still think there's probably occasional flow-through traffic on that. But I guess I wanted to have that discussion. Based on the information that I have, the warrants aren't there for a 4-way intersection. I think you have seen, we did send out letters, or we handed out information to property owners that are adjacent to that, to let them know that this was going to be a topic of discussion. And I think that you've received a couple of them so far, but
Is that road line going up and down, is that Ganon?
that's Ganon Street.
No offense, nobody wants to drive up and down Ganon right there. It's so narrow and.
No one wants to drive up and down any of those roads in that area. They're all narrow.
I'm just saying that for traffic flow and having to pass through and get up to Sunnyside that way, it's just not a.
I don't know what true traffic counts are today, but I'm guessing that there probably are less than 100 leaving Core Street
Yeah.
on Sunnyside or Osborne.
I was the one that brought this up, guys. because I had one of the business owners there approach me about it, and so I kind of hung out there for a couple of days, and the traffic speed is up there. When I was a kid growing up in that neighborhood, there was four-way stop line. It was stoplight controlled. The amber did help because you slowed down. You know, the difference now versus in 2009 when they took them out is you have 2 convenience stores, and they're now fully operational. They're driving more traffic. You have a new owner of the Quarter Tap there that has increased his restaurant business, so he has people pulling back and out. And then you also have the Hungry Bear's been revitalized, plus the gas station down the road. To me, because growing up on that road, I know how I sped through it. You guys, you're not old enough to catch me, Chief, on that one, but I know how I sped through it when I saw the green light. I think it's a neighborhood that I think it should have a four-way stop there, but that's my personal opinion. Just because the amount of traffic that is starting to increase in that little intersection, with them not having to slow down at all, and there's no check at all, it is a real concern to me. There is a lot of close, may not be accidents, but a lot of close ones.
And John, there's 2 other businesses that are new there. The hair
Yeah.
salon is
Yeah.
new, and then the
Yeah.
convenience store is new. And I drive through that intersection almost every day, and I think it's a fatality waiting to happen. You've got a lot of movement with businesses and cars and pedestrians and bicyclists, and it used to have a light there. And while that annoyed me that I got stopped at the light, I do see the need for some way. And I agree with your statement that just because you have signage doesn't mean people will reduce their speed, but at least it helps with the sight problem and stuff at that intersection. That I think there is a lot of moving parts going on at that intersection.
It's a long, unimpeded run.
It's a little sketch, especially when you come around by Hungry Bear and you're not sure where people are coming from or which way they're going. So, yeah, I think the stop signs might be a good idea if that's what we want to do. And they're cheaper to maintain than
The
lights,
lights
right?
are high.
A new installation of lights would be fairly significant
Several
because all that existing infrastructure is gone.
Well, the problem with putting stoplights in, you'd have to do something to highlight them, whether it's a middle sign or even, hate to say it, but West Burlington's solar light ring that they put on their stop signs just to call attention to them at first.
If this is the direction that you go and put a stop sign, I would recommend putting an advanced warning sign in this neighborhood that is maybe
Right.
an alternating light that says stop sign ahead or something to that degree.
you have to do
Because I had engineering take a look at what the sight distance for a stop sign is, and
It's not enough.
it is not enough. You need significantly more.
It was one thing when everybody counted on it being there, but now that it's been removed for a while, I would agree.
So I guess I disagree. I don't think it's necessary to have a stop sign there. I agree with Nick that you shouldn't use a stop sign as an apparatus to slow down traffic. For me, the primary source of that apparatus should hopefully be our local police, even asking to have an officer not stationed there, but somebody try to tackle the speeding problem through that area through radar and things like that. Initially, makes more sense to me than putting a permanent apparatus there, and then just reevaluating the situation moving forward. I do think that it makes sense to have some kind of signage that says hidden exit or something along that way, so that people coming down Sunnyside are aware that there's traffic that pull out. But I think using law
I don't think-
enforcement is the first step
Yeah,
instead
I
of
don't
putting a
thi-
permanent apparatus.
I would somewhat disagree, because I didn't even remember that amber light is put there. And I drive that road all the time.
Yeah.
So people do not necessarily pay attention to the roads. There's a lot of people, me included, that forget that's a speed shift there,
Yeah.
because they're not seeing the signs. I think you have to have
A
something.
couple of speeding tickets might take care of that.
I've had them there. It
So the
has
one
a
thing
stop.
that we have done in areas where there has been concerns of high speed, we did it most recently on the Agency Street project where we had a ton of traffic that was just flying by. We actually, I think through regional planning, we have a mobile cart that has the speed limit sign on there, and we could set that in that general vicinity. I think actually on Sunnyside. The problem really is Sunnyside is such a straight shot, and they're coming so fast up to that roadway, and then when they transition, they're still carrying that speed. I think if you were to put that there, for a period of time, kind of in right before that intersection, you may get some awareness of the speed, because it is only 30 through there. And then it shifts down to
Well, you also-
25.
The other thing is you do have the speed heading north too, right? Because they come up Osborne, which is that's a long uninterrupted road. They come up Osborne, they go by the gas station, and they go right down Sunnyside. So if you were gonna put one on both sides of those, I might consider it. It's just because of the site. When you come up Course, that's the outlet road from coming from down lower Burlington, if you want to call it that, or the lower end there, with Case, New Holland being down there. I mean, if you wanted to try that and see if it makes a difference, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but it's not just a one-way speed problem. It's not just a one-way traffic problem. It's two ways there, and that's my, like I said, my unscientific opinion, but that's as a resident living in that area and using that street every day for the last 40 years.
So I guess my primary concern is if you're gonna take 5,400 cars of traffic roughly and put a stop sign there, you're gonna back up traffic, especially during heavy times. And that's my primary concern with putting a four-way stop in there. I mean, if you think about that 3 o'clock hour when people are getting off, not only at Case, but they're also getting off at, the schools are letting out, and you've got all that going, you're gonna have cars, we're gonna end up with the same problem at that intersection that we have
It will
at
create.
West Burlington Avenue and.
It would create an awkward area right at the corner there by Hungry Bear, because Osborne has a stop sign and the Sunnyside doesn't. And so there's gonna be some sort of want for some sort of alternating movement there, especially as times get busy. I know even the temporary stop sign that goes in front of Aldo Sunnyside Elementary backs up traffic some, but they don't have hardly
And
any competition
The
for
wiring's not there to
turning.
put the lights back in?
There is a light on Sunnyside.
No, I mean where the control box is still there, there's not a spot to put a light on both sides and the wiring underneath when they removed it?
I don't know what you mean.
He's
For
talking about
the
putting new
If
traffic
you
lights
put
in.
traffic lights in because of the
At Course and
bottleneck.
Osborne?
Yeah,
And see, that's the way I would agree. I think, because the other thing is, if somebody's trying to cross there, a kid is trying to cross there, if we had the traffic lights back, where you could actually push it and allow people to go through, I'm all in favor of putting back traffic lights.
But that's a couple $100,000.
well,
We
that's
don't know
what my
that.
question is when they removed the lights, did they remove the wiring?
The conduit's still in the ground, but to what status they are, I
We
don't know.
don't
I
know.
mean, they're probably
We'd have to check it,
correct.
okay.
I wonder if there's any correlation to that traffic count rising, because I did look it up. So 2013 is when Case added that new line. They added a couple, 200 jobs, give or take. I wonder if there's any correlation to that traffic count rising between that 2010, 2015 time that you showed. So, because it went up by almost 500 cars daily down Course Street.
Yeah, Course went up quite a bit.
I wonder if there's any,
Well,
if that's the cause of that, whether or not.
I guess that would be my question. I mean, if we think a stop sign's a bottleneck, well, if we have, the wiring's already in place and they just took the lights down, can we not just put 2 lights there without having the expense of rewiring it? But we don't know that
You
question.
couldn't just put up 2 lights.
4 lights.
You'd have to put 4 lights. You couldn't, to put 2 lights up with stop signs
Well,
wouldn't
are
work.
the pedestals still there and the wiring's there is what my question is.
No, those are
Okay.
gone.
Okay. Well, I'm in favor of at least putting the speed thing there, and I'm still gonna probably say we need a stop sign there, but that's my personal opinion. And that we're a council of 5, so you guys get to vote and have your opinions. So, but
Before this comes up, will it be checked to see if the conduit is still there and wiring?
We can check, but I guess to what degree are you gonna want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to put lights up? If that's the course of action, I have no problem doing that.
I think first of all, we need to know if it's even feasible. Is the stuff still there? Yes or no?
Running conduit under a street's not a very big deal. I mean, in the scope of it, it's the mast arms and it's the controllers, it's the equipment
All that stuff.
to install it.
Because we looked at doing just flashing lights on West Avenue, we were talking about 50,000, and that was without the control stuff. That's just
But the
flashing
control
lights.
stuff's already there.
No,
He
it's-
just said the box is still there.
No,
It's-
No,
no,
that's
there's
all-
a
that's all
box
gone.
there, but that, all it does is flash that light. And there's no, part of the reason why it is programming. So Lee Brick and Division, the controllers that run those programs to say when it turns green and yellow and red, those are so outdated, and to upgrade them, we'd have to buy new. And so those are $15,000 to $20,000 just for that controller unit itself, and then you need to house it in a $5,000 cabinet. And then in this case, I would say that mast arms could work, but I know that there's overhead electrical. And I don't want to discourage looking
Yeah.
at lights, but that's another conversation, because you can't just, let's put lights up, but you have to look at what that whole impact is too.
I'm fine with the four-way stop. It's about as much traffic as what Main Street has. And I'm fine with the four-way stop, but I think we have to do something there. The speed is, unless we really can't park an officer there to maintain the speed limit. And because it is a long and uninterrupted road from Osborne all the way over to Roosevelt, I'd like to have something there. You can start with the speed thing, and we can ask Chief to have someone patrol and see if that doesn't slow people down. The merchants in that area are concerned. Barb Adrian's letter said she witnesses things all the time out at that intersection. I think we gotta do something. Now, I don't know if we need to go the expense of the lights, but I think we could definitely put a four-way stop in the middle of the intersection and at least try that for a bit, and let's see what the traffic does. I'm surely we've had one down here on Main Street forever at Jefferson. We can wheel that thing out of the center of it and put a sign up that, hey, look, flashing light, you have a stop sign coming, and let's see what happens.
Well, Matt's idea of the hidden entrance or hidden exit sign, maybe with a flashing light on it, might also have people exercise caution when they come to the intersection, because it is a blind spot. So if you had a hidden, because part of the business owner's problem was that their traffic from their business is trying to get back onto the road, right?
That was the one gentleman, yeah.
Yeah, so if you had a hidden exit or hidden entrance sign on either side with a little bit of a light to make people aware that someone might be trying to pull onto the road that you can't see, that might solve it right there too.
So what
Or do we
want
need to
do-
look at a speed reduction there? I agree with Matt, there's gonna be a terrible bottleneck. You're gonna sit there for 5 minutes.
Stop sign just 'cause
It's
I'm
gonna
afraid
be
of the bottleneck.
bad. I agree. The traffic counts are high there. It's gonna be bad. We're just gonna make people in our town, visitors, very grouchy.
Well, so at Main Street, we have the same amount of traffic. We don't give them an unimpeded run.
Main Street's a little,
How is it?
Well, they have a stop.
Well, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. We don't give them an unimpeded run, but here on Osborne, you got 5,400 and 2,600. We're
I don't
not
mind-
asking anybody to stop.
I don't mind the stoplight, I just don't like the price of putting them up.
Well, I don't care about the stoplight. Stop and go traffic is not bad on that area. At least we need to put something up that says slow down, there's an hidden intersection, but I'm gonna vote for a four-way stop sign. That's just my opinion, and you guys can do what you want, but that's what I'm gonna push for. Because I think the intersection is an accident waiting to happen. And I don't wanna be the guy that says, oh, we could have done something we didn't. I wouldn't agree when they removed the traffic signals before, but now
Well,
that area started revitalized.
I
it's
know
got more traffic.
when the lights were removed, it was kind of a contentious issue of them coming down in the first place.
Yeah.
I think the relief of not having to sit there, because there was no controllers there, there was no loops in the ground.
just
It
sat there
it
and
was
there
on
was
a
nobody
30
coming.
or 45-second timer, that turned, so you could
stunk.
sit there for a while without it changing.
stop sign, you're
And so
gonna
there was
sit there for
some
traffic.
relief with that, but at the same time, it did control it. And the basis for them to remove that was because it didn't warrant having that. Now, traffic patterns have changed some, and so that's why I'm saying if a stop sign is the route that we would head, I would want to go through these traffic counts that are a little bit more precise, because we don't have traffic counts from really the side of the intersection that's causing the concern because of the sight distance, which is the west side, of course. And I would say the difference on why the west side, of course, is a little bit different is because the traffic counts on that side are, I mean, it was less than 100 there. So, I mean, that's a little bit of the difference. So I feel like we're kind of all over. I don't know what we want to
Well,
look at doing.
I would say then you need to look at the numbers then, if you need more time to look at that. and what you just said, then do that and then come back to us.
I'd like to see some cost figures on what it would cost to put a flashing light up again. I do think you're asking for a bottleneck if we go with the four-way.
Flashing or
A flashing light or a
Something.
traffic
controlled
light?
traffic light, two different things.
But what's cheapest?
A flashing light.
But the
You don't
flashing
have a
doesn't control
controller.
traffic. Flashing is what they've got there already in front of this lawn. It's just a yellow flashing
Oh,
light.
they do? How
The
perceptive I am.
stoplight,
You
the
live in that neighborhood,
stoplight.
you haven't seen it either? Okay, my point.
Am I the only one that doesn't live in the neighborhood that actually knows that that's there?
Bill, have you seen it? You live in that neighborhood? Okay.
Yeah, the stoplight's gonna control traffic, and that's the control boards and stuff he's talking about.
And I just know it's gonna be cashy. That's what I know.
For full controlled intersection, yes, yeah.
Vic, can we get a price on that?
I could ballpark it.
Okay. So is that what we want to do, is ballpark it? Do you want to look at, can we get how much is a traffic study to do?
It's just getting regional planning or something to get some traffic counters out there.
Okay.
They'll probably do it for free.
Can we do how about if we do this? Can we do the traffic study? And can we go ahead and put you said regional planning had a slow speed, put that up in the meantime and see if we can't at least give some relief to the neighborhood, and then we can decide where we're at from there. Is that possible?
That's
Is that
a,
agreeable with everybody? Let's do that.
that's a unified direction, so
Okay.
yes, I would say yes.
That's what you were looking for.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Next up, committee appointments, Economic Development Advisory Board, Joel Searing, thanks, Matt. Joel Searing has expired, he's expressed interest in signing again, his term, thanks Linda. So for 3-year term, and the other one is Tim Agnew is willing to serve on the Housing Appeal Board again, and Parks and Advisory is Peggy Hunt is willing to renew her term. So there's 3 appointments. Does anybody have any questions on those?
Yes, sir.
All right, any future discussion items? We have our good friends of Parking Passes and Friends of Cascade Bridge. Is anything else from staff? Eric? Chief? No. Nick? Thanks for filling in for Jim twice now. Chief? Stephanie? Bill?
No?
Robert? No. Matt?
Perfect.
Linda?
It's sweet corn time, and that means farmer's market, so head on down this Thursday.
Oh, Very Vintage Market is this weekend as well,
Yes,
isn't
it
it?
is.
Is it?
It's, what's Saturday, but it's got a different kind of approach this year. They've got a bunch of vendors, but they're gonna actually be inside the shops, along the Jefferson Street corridor. So, if you're available, tackle that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, I don't have anything, so let's adjourn. Thanks, everybody.